This millionaire Arab laughed, but her black waitress tango will haunt you forever. The party buzzed with laughter, the kind that made the walls vibrate. The scent of exotic spices danced through the air, mingling with the pop of champagne corks, but that's not what caught the eye. No, it was the sight of her, a young black waitress gliding across the marble floor, her movements sharp and elegant, like a blade of ice skimming water. Guests whispered and tugged at their leather cufflinks, wide-eyed at her unearthly grace. A hush fell, silence creeping in, as she elegantly dipped into an intricate tango, catching the attention of the world-renowned millionaire at the head of the table. Her presence whispered of mystery. Rumors spread like wildfire among the guests. Some claimed she had voodoo blood that could charm the snakes themselves, while others insisted she was bewitched, cursed to dance forever in black and gold. Just as the millionaire lifted her hand to her lips, an odd, unsettling smile creeping across her face, the lights flickered. The nervous laughter of the crowd took on a panicked edge. They shuddered, exchanging glances as if a shadow had crept into their midst. The uncertainty was palpable, hearts raced, palms clammy. And then, the clap of thunder cracked outside, slicing through the moment. It echoed like a warning. Money couldn't buy this kind of dread. Against all logic, dread sank its teeth into their minds. The waitress spun, her grin frozen on her face, eyes fixated on the millionaire. For a heartbeat, the world stood still, and then chaos broke loose. A glass shattered, laughter turned into terrified yelps. Someone screamed. Was it an innocent cry of fear or a sound of pure hatred? Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air crackled. Was it the electricity, or was it something more sinister? Everyone knew they should run, or maybe they shouldn't. The millionaire rose, eyes glittering, and pulled the waitress close, whispering something that made her skin prickle. Was it a command? A desperate plea? As guests backed away, their breaths mingling in a frenzy, she lifted her chin, pulse racing. Who was she really? What dark secrets did she carry in those glimmering eyes as she prepared to dance her tango with fate? And would anyone survive the haunting of the night? The thunder rumbled again, a powerful fist pounding against the heavens, as the lights flickered and dimmed, plunging the room into a treacherous twilight. Gasps filled the air, a chorus of dread, as guests stumbled backward, eyes wide, minds racing. They clutched their champagne flutes like talismans, seeking comfort in fragile glass as the waitress remained frozen in place, the pulse of the party morphing into a haunting symphony. Then, the music swelled again, a different tune, menacing and strange. The notes felt like cold fingers wrapping around their throats. Instinctively, they shuffled, a sea of panic and confusion. No one knew where to run, and the shimmering light cast ominous shadows across faces that fluttered like moths in a storm, each one reflecting an array of emotions: fear, suspicion, and intrigue. The millionaire stood tall, a dark figure illuminated only by sporadic flashes. "It's just the storm." He laughed, though his voice quaked under its own weight, a hollow echo filled with uncertainty. He still clutched the waitress's hand, his grip tight, as if she alone could anchor his confidence against the mounting chaos. Her eyes burned with a strange intensity, a quiet defiance that soothed and startled, almost beckoning him to the edge of something unknown. "Let us dance again," she whispered, her voice like silk wrapping around steel. The words hung in the air, drawing everyone in. One heartbeat at a time, the guests fell silent, a spell cast in a room thrumming with unshared fears. They watched, breath held, as the two began to move, the dance transforming from mere performance to an otherworldly display of tension. With each step, the vibrations of onlookers grew violent within them. Shadows seemed to stretch and curl, encasing the couple in a bubble of energy. The waitress twirled, and it held the audience captive. Blurs of black and gold weaved through the air like threads of fate. And still, the unease persisted. The storm outside roared, its fury rising in proportion to their collective heartbeats. Suddenly, the lights flickered once more, and this time a few went out for good. Gasps erupted, and a scream sliced through the darkness, a shriek of fury or a cry of loss. The crowd jumped, a wave of confusion crashing against their yearning for clarity. In this moment of darkness, something deep and sinister stirred, awakening irregular heartbeats hidden beneath the opulent facade. "Mira!" shouted someone from the edges. A man in a crisp suit, trembling. "She can call them. We need to get out." But the urgency of his voice barely penetrated the spell binding them. "Let it happen," a different voice murmured, full of curiosity and fear. "She knows." In a whimsical flurry, the dance escalated, moving beyond rhythm, each turn sending a ripple through the guests' collective unease. Glistening black eyes flashed venomous truths, while the millionaire fumbled for control, powerless against the unseen force weaving around them, and then it struck. An unseen force crashed into the room like a tidal wave. The floor shook, the walls trembled, and an unearthly howl echoed throughout the hall. In that instant, everyone's breath left them. Yes, they were swept up in the whirlwind, hearts hammering, sense of safety long forgotten. Was it the dance or the dancer? Was it the storm's rage or the storm brewing within their souls? As the guests turned to each other, the question reverberated through them, who their own darkness or that enchanting darkness holding sway on the dance floor. The storm quelled momentarily, leaving behind only the gasping silence of broken anticipation. But then, as if to answer, a sharp crack split through the air, thunderous and demanding. The room awakened to discover the true source of dread as the window shattered, glass cascading into the void. Something sinister loomed outside, waiting. Was this the awakening of something far greater than they had imagined? Or had they just danced into their own demise? The chaos seemed to pause, stretched thin like the last flicker of a dying flame. Guests huddled together, gripping their hearts, as shards of glass sparkled like ice on the floor. Like wild animals caught in a blinding spotlight, fear painted their faces with stark strokes. They exchanged furtive glances, tension thickening the air around them. The waitress held the millionaire's gaze, her expression unyielding. She had danced before, but not like this. There was power in every sway, every gaze she cast. The shadows that had once been spectators now bled into the light, wrapping around them like dark tendrils. He could feel it too, the unseen force humming beneath his skin, pulling him deeper into her world. "Are you scared?" she asked, her voice steady, piercing through the muted clamor of anxiety. "Of what?" His attempt at bravado wavered. The storm was still raging outside, but something else stormed inside the room, something darker, alive. The glass beneath their feet shifted, subtly but unsettling. A crack of laughter echoed against the walls, but it wasn't from the billionaire or anyone else in the party. It came from outside, a low, dissonant cackle that sent a chill racing down spines. Then came the rustling, like whispers traveling through the air, weaving in and out as if the very night was alive and conspiring, hungry for secrets. Suddenly, the lights blinked out completely. Silence swallowed the room, a deafening void wrapping around their pounding hearts. When the lights returned, the atmosphere transformed. The dance floor was gone, replaced by a void of terror, moonlight illuminating figures gathering beyond the shattered window, their forms obscured by shadows, anxiety morphing into unshakable dread. "Get back!" screamed the man at the edges again, his eyes wild. "They don't come for us. They come for her." Whispers erupted, voices shaken with fear and disbelief. The millionaire stumbled back, nearly losing his footing. "Who are you talking about?" he shot back, a tremor in his voice betraying his bravado. The room became a maelstrom of confusion. Faces twisted in terror, slowly turning to the waitress, who stood at the center, no longer drenched in unearthly elegance but drenched in power. "They want you to choose," she said, lifting her chin defiantly. "Choose to either embrace this fate or fight it." A gust of wind howled through the shattered window, sending icy tendrils across the room. The crowd recoiled, eyes darting to the figures growing clearer outside, dark silhouettes with impossibly long limbs, faces obscured but eyes gleaming with hunger. "They're coming!" someone shouted, panic shattering whatever calm had remained. The waitress's laughter rang through the air, a melodic contrast to the chaos. She wasn't afraid, she was alive, invigorated by the very darkness that terrified everyone else. "You can't leave. You are tied to this moment, our dance binds us." More chaos erupted, guests scrambling toward the exits that felt impossibly far. Hands reached for her, pleading for clarity and safety. The fear of the unknown clawed at their backs, the black shadows now solid forms advancing, ready to claim what they came for. "Trust me," she shouted again, but it was more of a command than a plea. The room felt electric, static buzzing between them, danger pooling like a dark essence. The night trembled, pushing against her command. With a swift turn, she caught the millionaire's eye, igniting a flicker of understanding between them. The storm broke louder, but they were caught in a different storm, one forged from decisions and shadows. And at that moment, they had to confront the question hanging in the air: would they remain captive to their fears, or would they step into the darkness that beckoned, a darkness that could either destroy them or set them free? As a figure stepped through the broken window, the shadows clinging to them like smoke, the room held its collective breath, silence morphing to the edge of screams. This was just the beginning, and the true dance was about to unfold. The figure that emerged from the jagged window was unlike anything the guests had ever seen. It was tall, impossibly tall, with arms that seemed to stretch like twisted branches reaching for the sky. The moonlight caught the edges of its shadowy form, accentuating the sharp angles as it stepped forward. Instinct pushed the crowd back into a frenzied retreat, but the waitress remained anchored at the center, a beacon against the growing darkness. "Stay close," she shouted, her voice slicing through the panic. "We are bound to this moment, follow my lead." But the guests were paralyzed, fear etched into their features, eyes wide as they struggled to comprehend the new horror before them. The dark figure, still shifting and swirling like smoke, tilted its head, an unsettling echo of curiosity emanating from it, causing the shadows around it to twist in response. The millionaire, heart racing, stepped closer to the waitress, pulled by an invisible thread. "What is that?" he breathed, the question barely escaping his throat, laden with dread. "Something that knows what you fear," she answered, her gaze flickering between him and the swirling shape. "But it's not the huntress, it's the hunted." Suddenly, the lights flickered again, now stuttering like a broken heartbeat. Every flicker sent shivers through their souls, illuminating faces twisted in horror, shifting silhouettes morphing into grotesque specters, mirroring their own fears. With every pulse of light, the shadow-sized figure grew more corporeal, revealing a face trapped in eternal mockery, torn between sadness and sinister glee. "Choose." It echoed, the voice a chilling harmony of despair and laughter cascading through the loft. "You can embrace the void or lose everything." Chaos erupted anew. Guests screamed, some clawing at the exit doors, only to find them stuck, unyielding and cruel. Others dropped to their knees, hands clutching their heads as if trying to block out the fractured sounds that twisted their already frayed nerves. "No!" shouted the waitress, cutting through the chaos, her voice a firm command. "Stand tall. We have strength in our choices. We can dance with it, or we can fight." In that moment, the air hummed with tension. She stepped forward, swaying gracefully despite the gravity of the situation. The grotesque figure shifted its weight, matching her rhythm. The shadows coiled around the waitress, eagerly responding to her every move. "Join me," she cried to the crowd, her confidence forging a fragile bridge over the abyss of fear. "Nothing can harm us when we embrace our light." The millionaire took a breath, feeling that electric connection stronger than ever. He could see the determination burning in her eyes, igniting something deep inside him as well. The darkness, once so daunting, now seemed to shift, waiting to see if they would surrender or reclaim their inner strength. Emboldened, he stepped forward, mirroring her movements. "We're not afraid." His voice rang loud, carrying hope even in the face of despair. As more guests began to join, swaying under the spell of her command, the figure's expression morphed from amusement to uncertainty. A ripple of confusion passed through the shadows, shifting like waves in a storm. But then, amidst the dance, an unexpected crack of thunder struck outside, illuminating the room in a flash. In that instant, the guests saw themselves reflected in the figure's eyes, and a chilling realization washed over them. Their true darkness resided not in the figure before them, but within their own hearts, their own fears of losing everything. Could they conquer it together, or would that darkness swallow them whole? With the shadows writhing around, the dance intensified, and the figures outside pressed closer, as if awaiting the ultimate choice. The air was thick with uncertainty, and a shiver ran through the crowd. They were caught in a web of fate and fear, teetering on the edge of decision. Just as the moment threatened to break, the figure raised an arm, revealing an ancient mark glowing on its palm, a symbol of despair and possibility. Intertwined. "Dance with me if you dare," it whispered, voice like velvet cutting through the noise of the world. The guests hesitated, caught in the grips of fate, their choice looming like a shadow, a final decision that could lead to salvation or destruction. Would they reveal the truth hidden deep within, or would the dance end before it truly began? The atmosphere crackled, charged with an electric tension that held the room hostage. Every heartbeat felt loud, resonating with the frantic whispers of the guests. The spectral figure loomed, its dark form almost pulsating in rhythm with the throbbing fear in their chests. "Join the dance," it urged again, its voice now a seductive caress entwined with an edge of danger. The guests remained frozen, caught in a mute struggle between instinct and desire. Shadows flickered, and the ancient mark glimmered ominously, as if alive, waiting to ensnare them. The waitress's eyes were bright with fierce determination, a beacon amidst the approaching storm. She continued to sway, a flow of defiance against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. The millionaire felt her gaze pierce through him. This was no ordinary moment. It was a crossroads, a chance to face not only the figure before them but the swirling chaos within. "Look to each other," she called out, her voice rising above the chaos. "Fear will bind us unless we choose to unite. Trust your own light." With a sudden burst of courage, one of the guests, a young woman clad in pale silk, took a step forward. She trembled as she reached out her hand, as if straddling the thin line between fear and liberation. Slowly, the crowd seemed to respond, an instinctual drive igniting their hope. One by one, hands joined, creating a fragile web of connection. Each grip was a tether, a lifeline against the shadows. The room became illuminated by the pulse of their collective humanity, casting soft light against the figure's relentless dark. "See!" the waitress shouted, her voice nearly drowned out by the tremors of thunder outside. "Together, we might just have enough light to see the truth." The figure shifted once again, its expression betraying a flicker of vulnerability. Was it fear? Surprise? The very shadows that fanned out from its body began to retract, pulse by pulse, as if fed by their unity and strength. The millionaire felt a surge of adrenaline. "We are more than our fears," he shouted, the declaration bold and resonant. The words reverberated around the room, growing louder, a chorus of courage building momentum as more guests joined their voices. "More than our fears." They echoed, shaky but united, as the song of defiance rose in volume. But just as the figure seemed to quiver, a new sound sliced through the chorus of hope, a guttural growl, deep and relentless, vibrating through the very bones of the floor. The crowd gasped as the air grew heavy, shadows shifting violently around them as the figure began to scream. "Foolish mortals!" it howled, the laughter now a monstrous wail laced with venom. "You think this is a choice? There is no escape. You will find your true selves judged by the very fears you dismiss." A crack of lightning shattered the room, revealing the guests in a stark contrast of light and dark. The waitress stood firm, determination etched across her face. "It's time to face what you've hidden." Do not run from the shadows. The light flickered once more, and on the edge of the room stood the remaining guests, torn between their own fears and the allure of the figure's chaotic promise. And just then, the shadows formed a maelstrom, swirling violently around them, pulling at their very souls. The waitress shouted desperately, "Now! Embrace your truth!" But as the chaos intensified, the figure's laughter melded with the storm outside, each sound a chilling reminder of their fears coming to life. Would they hold on to their unity, or would the darkness tear them apart? Choose wisely. The figure shrieked, as it lunged. The crowd braced for impact. Did they have the strength to meet it head-on, or would they crumble under the weight of their own nightmares? The answer loomed in the air, thick and suffocating. A decision needed to be made, but time was slipping away. The shadows exploded around them, twisting and churning like a storm unleashed. The figure surged forward, a nightmare-given form, its outstretched arms intent on devouring the light they had created. Panic erupted, voices raised in terror, hands slipping as the fabric of their unity began to fray. "No! Don't let go!" The waitress's voice rang out, sharp and clear, slicing through the chaos like a knife. She stepped closer, defiance etched on her face. "Remember why we're here. This darkness thrives on division." A fat drop of sweat rolled down the millionaire's back. He could feel the heat radiating from that spectral presence, could sense the dread creeping through his veins. "Look for your light," he yelled, forcing himself to keep his grip strong on the hands of those beside him. Yet, one by one, his companions faltered, eyes brimming with fear. The pale silk woman gasped as the shadows curled around her ankles. Her scream echoed as she was yanked into the depths of the abyss, the unraveling cries leaving a void of silence. Every inch of him quivered, he was losing them. The figure's voice transformed, an eerie melody that caressed the edges of their minds. "Join us, embrace your fears, or suffer the agony of your resistance." It beckoned, sweetly deceptive, promising power beyond anything they had known. A jagged bolt of panic struck the crowd. Muffled gasps filled the air alongside murmurs of doubt. "What if it's right?" someone whispered, fear dripping from their tone. "Maybe it's better to give in." "No." The waitress countered, her voice steady. "Fears are not your truths. They're lies meant to bind you." The aged coffin-like door swung open wide, a dark cavity behind it. Was it an escape? Or a trap? Shadows swelled, beckoning those who questioned their resolve. The chaos danced, a mocking laughter reverberating among the frightened guests. The millionaire felt the weight of despair sinking his shoulders. "If we can trust one another through this," he shouted, igniting the flickers of hope from before, "we can fight back. We are stronger together." But fear and desperation cut sharper than any dagger. Those around him swayed, uncertainty twisting their faces. As he looked into the eyes of the crowd, he saw something disastrous, broken spirits teetering on a knife's edge, ready to plunge into the void. Hold the line. Fight for each other. A new glance from the waitress stirred man into action. She spun as her body wove a challenging dance that wrapped around him like tendrils of strength, drawing the gaze of the group. She embodied the defiance they all needed. The shadows writhed violently, a beast fighting against the light. Teeth bared, the figure lunged again, a howl of rage escaping its lips as it realized their connection threatened its very existence. "Join the dance." It wailed once more, but there was a crack in its malevolence now. The guests hesitated, the horror mixing with awe. Could they really claim their power? Light surged, radiant and vibrant, an awakening. We are more than victims of our fears. Driven by fury and determination, they gripped each other's hands tighter. They took a step forward, a collective decision etched in defiance. "Now!" The waitress screamed, and they moved as one, pushing against the onslaught of shadows. But as the walls of darkness began to crumble, a piercing wail erupted. "You cannot escape your darkness forever." The figure screamed, its body transforming, fraying at the edges as chaotic energy pooled and lashed out like a whip. In that moment of light and fear, a chilling truth carved into their hearts: what if this was only the beginning? The ground trembled beneath them, and the figure shattered into fragments of shadow, scattering across the room in a tempest of chaos. The lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness once again. But as they stumbled, grasping for balance, a familiar voice echoed from the void, enticing, beckoning them back. "Come back. I could show you what it means to actually be free." Their own shadows surged forward, eager to snatch them away once more. As the darkness lurked closer, a question loomed like the edge of the storm: would they have enough strength left to fight, or had they only touched the surface of their greatest fears? Chaos exploded around them. The shadows thrashed, a hurricane of unease swallowing the last remnants of light. Screams blended and rose, fear wrapping itself like a vice around their throats. The millionaire felt his heart pounding, each beat a warning, a reminder of the horror they faced. "Focus!" shouted the waitress, her voice cutting through the panic like a lifeline. "Don't let the fear take hold." But the shadows were cunning, swirling closer, creeping silently into their minds, planting seeds of doubt. The millionaire glanced at the others, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror as they faltered under the weight of anxiety. He barely recognized them now, they felt more like victims than allies. "Stay strong," he urged, desperation tinging his words. "We are together in this. Don't let it pull you apart." The words fell flat, drowning in the wails around them. Another figure, a middle-aged man with a tremor in his hands, released his grip. The millionaire's stomach dropped. The shadows seized the opportunity, latching onto him like a predator at a feast. "No!" he shouted, panic clawing at his throat. But it was too late. The man vanished, swallowed into the void, his scream echoing hauntingly through the darkness. "Look!" The waitress pointed wildly as the shadows converged, forming shapes that twisted with malicious intent. "They're feeding off our fear. Don't give them what they want." A tremor of hope flickered, but fear snuffed it out quickly. The millionaire could feel it draining away, feeling the despair like a weight on his chest. He locked eyes with the waitress, their unspoken determination sparking briefly in the engulfing darkness. "Together!" she yelled, voice strong and fierce despite the chaos. "We can push through. Remember the light within." With every ounce of defiance, the crowd pushed forward as one. Hands tightened as they formed a human chain against the encroaching darkness. Together, they took a step, shifting the tide. The light, their collective hope, surged with more intensity, blinding and warm against the cold grip of fear. Suddenly, the figure reformed from the shadows, twisting grotesquely, mocking their effort. "You think you can resist forever?" it shrieked, its laughter a maddening cacophony. "All you do is delay the inevitable." The million-dollar question hung heavy in the air: was this just a facade? Were they fighting against a reality beyond their grasp? He squeezed the waitress's hand tighter, his fear morphing into a sharpened blade of resolve. "We won't quit," he bellowed, the defiance igniting something in the group. The ground jolted violently beneath them. Their balance wavered, screams mixed with exhilarated cries as the shadows recoiled, retreating momentarily. "Now!" the waitress commanded, her eyes ablaze with determination. They surged forward, hearts thundering in unison, determination feeding the light that blazed before them. But the darkness howled in rage. "You cannot extinguish what I have seeded in your hearts." The shadows lunged, swirling toward them once more, but this time the collective light burned brighter. Suddenly, a voice taunted from within that darkness, so familiar yet chilling. "You think this is victory? This is only a taste. You will see." The shadows lurked like lions ready to pounce, claws poised to tear apart the fragile bonds they de-built. As the light flared around them, doubt began to creep in again. Was this defiance merely a prelude to greater chaos? Were the shadows awaiting their next chance to strike deeper, harder than ever before? Silence fell inexplicably, fringed with tension, leaving only the pulse of uncertainty. It thrummed in the air, a reminder that their battle against the dark was far from over. As they braced themselves for the next assault, the question reverberated in their hearts: what unseen horrors lay in wait, and how could they hope to withstand them? The shadows writhed as if alive, pulsing with a hunger that seemed unending. The waitress tightened her grip on the millionaire's hand, the heat of her fear seeping into his skin. They stood together, feet planted against the encroaching darkness, but the tempest of whispers rose again, taunting them, promising despair. "What's next?" a voice quivered from the crowd, barely audible above the rising chaos. It was a woman, her face drenched in sweat, eyes wild as they darted around. "How can we fight this?" A surge of adrenaline shot through the millionaire. "We fight by believing," he shouted, trying to instill a flicker of bravery in the faces staring back at him. But deep inside, doubt twisted like a knife. "Strength in numbers," the waitress echoed, her voice breaking the turbulent currents of fear. "We cannot be broken. We will push back." As if mocking them, the shadows roared, their forms shifting and growing. Tentacles stretched out, grasping for any weakness. The millionaire could see that fragile camaraderie around him. People who had clung to each other for so long now looked like victims ready to surrender. "Stay together," he insisted. "Do not break." They took a collective breath, hearts drumming like war drums in their chests, and stepped forward again. Light sparked off their hands, igniting a radiant shield around them. For a brief moment, it felt like they might just break free, but suddenly, the shadows surged forward, their dark claws grazing the edges of their light, extinguishing hope with every touch. The cries of the lost echoed louder, spinning into a fit of madness that pulsed through the group. The lady with trembling hands fell back, giving in to the grip of terror, and the shadows pounced. The millionaire's stomach twisted. Each scream was a dagger. "No!" he cried out, but his voice was lost amidst the chaos. The waitress rallied the remaining group. "This isn't the end. Remember all we have left to fight for. Our kindness, our courage, hold tight to that." But doubt had crept back into their hearts like an insidious shadow, and the tight bond they had formed began to fray. They staggered, the brilliance of their defiance dimming as fear constricted their throats, making it hard to breathe, harder to fight. With a clawed hand, a shadow shot forward and snatched a man from their ranks. His terrified shout sliced through the air, shattering what little resolve remained. "Keep pushing!" he screamed, his last plea echoing beyond the void. The millionaire felt his heart wrench as despair threatened to consume him whole. "We can't let this become our reality," he said, feeling the hopelessness seep in. "We will not let the darkness claim us." In that moment, there was a flash. A vision flashed in the millionaire's mind, a flicker of light from the outside world, memories of laughter and joy, bonding under blue skies and warm sunlight. The contrast was stark. His heart raced with the urgency to return to that moment. "Think of what awaits us," he shouted, more to himself than to the group. "Remember why we came together. Love, hope, our dreams, those are our strongest weapons." With newfound determination, fingers tightened together as they advanced yet again. Shadows slashed at them, but they pushed through, light intensifying, nauseating fear transforming into something fierce and undeniable. But then the shadows collided, merging into a colossal dark mass that loomed before them. A chilling laugh echoed from its depths, cutting through their fragile resolve. "You cannot escape your darkest fears, not now, not ever." A deep tremor ran through the ground, collapsing the last semblance of stability. The shadows twirled, intertwining in a dizzying spiral, and the air thickened with dread. Their surroundings twisted and faded into an inky void. The millionaire felt the vibrant fire of hope flickering. Victory seemed tantalizingly close, yet weightier than ever. In his gut, he sensed a truth, slithering like smoke: they had to confront the shadows not just outside, but within. As the darkness snarled, wrapping around them in a tightening grip. The question hung heavy: could they face not just the shadows in front of them, but also the fears that lurked in their own hearts? The certainty of catastrophe loomed large and time was running out. Fingers trembling, the waitress squeezed the millionaire's hand tighter, as if anchoring herself to something, anything, human in this swirling madness. They stood united, but the shadows lunged again, a cacophony of howls and chattering teeth clawing at their sanity. "Stay strong!" the millionaire cried, his voice barely breaking through the chaos. He could feel his heart pounding in rhythm with the collective fear around him. They were on the edge of a precipice, and one wrong move could send them tumbling into the abyss. Suddenly, a hush fell over the group, like the calm before a storm. They all turned toward the colossal shadow looming before them, its mass pulsating with an ominous life of its own. It was a grotesque embodiment of their deepest fears, but he couldn't let them see that. He couldn't let them sense the doubt creeping back in. What does it want?" A man's voice pierced the stillness, trembling yet urgent. "Your fear," the shadow hissed, its voice like gravel scraping against glass. "It thrives on your mistakes, your regrets. You've all known loss, I feed on that pain. You will never see the light again." The millionaire felt a surge of defiance. He wasn't just standing in front of shadows. He was standing in front of his own mistakes, the echoes of his past haunting him the same way the darkness haunted this moment. "Listen to me," he shouted, urgency igniting every syllable. "We will not give in. We will confront our darkness. We've come this far, and I refuse to let it win." A murmur of agreement spread through the group, but uncertainty creased many faces. Their eyes darted to the encroaching mass, swallowing the very hope they clung to. Hesitantly, the waitress stepped forward. "Yes. Let us share our truths. If we voice them, they lose their power." One by one, the voices began to emerge. A woman shared her crippling guilt over leaving her sick mother, her words a cathartic release. Another man whispered about the torment of failing in his business, each syllable unearthing a hidden sorrow. The shadows recoiled, shuddering as if struck by an unseen force. "Keep going," the millionaire encouraged. "Let it out. Don't let your fear control you." With every confession, the shadows pulsated, shrinking for the first time, their dark tendrils faltering. A sense of renewed strength surged through the collective, a resonant chorus of shared trauma embracing them. The closer they got to facing what they had buried, the more power they took back. The dark entity hissed in fury, "You think this is enough? You think confessions will save you? I will consume the light that you hold so dear." More voices broke into the void. Laughter echoed from distant memories of family, friends, love lost yet still cherished. Joy erupted amongst pain, creating a strange harmony that vibrated through the shadows. Light sparked in the depths of their minds, flickers of trapped happiness lit the way. "What if we're stronger than our fears?" The waitress's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. "What if we can rise together?" The shadows twisted violently, reluctance etched in the darkness. The moment hung thick with tension. Then, without warning, the darkness shifted violently, engulfing them in a blinding flash of chaos. Darkness clawed at their eyes as blinding light exploded around them. Instinctively, they held on tighter to one another, desperate to coalesce as a shield against the storm of emotions and fears threatening to tear them apart. As the light flickered, the shadows screeched, balancing on the brink of fading away, yet the energy in the air was thick with uncertainty. The millionaire struggled with a haunting realization: they could beat back the darkness, but would they survive the reckoning of their own insecurities? Then, piercing through the clash of light and shadow, a final question echoed in the millionaire's mind, unanswered and haunting: what happens when they confront the ghosts of their pasts and find out what truly lies hidden within their hearts? The chaos reached a fever pitch, an explosion of shadows as the creature twisted, bending the very fabric of the room. The millionaire felt a tremor in his bones, fear clinging to him like a second skin. But amidst the terror, the waitress stood strong, her eyes blazing with a defiance that ignited a spark within him. They were not alone anymore, the crowd had begun to unify. "Together!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. We will not yield to the shadows. We face our fears as one, unbroken. And just like that, the shards of light began to flicker alive. One by one, the guests found their courage, confessed their darkest secrets, and let the burdens of their pasts spill forth like a flood. They were not just reliving their failures, they were reclaiming their humanity. The more they shared, the more the creature shrank back, its darkness losing its grip on the room. I felt so unworthy as a parent, a woman cried, squeezing another's hand tightly. I thought I'd failed my children. I was once careless with love, another trembled. And now I'm alone. The shadows writhed, howling as they were fed by their honesty. The creature's form fragmented, and in those piercing moments of vulnerability, it began to falter. It was as if their truths were blades, slicing through the veil of darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. Release it. Let it out. The millionaire urged, each stanza resonating against the shrinking silhouette. A deep breath swept through the crowd, a palpable wave of liberation. With every confession, they felt lighter, and the shadows became thicker, the very essence of their anxieties, misgivings, and regrets now their weapon against the darkness. What once felt continuous and overwhelming began to shift. An echo of laughter found its way through, memories shared, joyful moments dancing through their minds, illuminating their hearts beneath the straining shadows. People started clapping, a simple rhythm that reverberated within the sanctuary they had forged, each clap an acknowledgement, each laugh a grin for the light that was starting to return. Hold on to that light. The waitress called, her vivid gaze trained on the creature. Let it guide you. This is our power. Together. Just like that, the shadows lunged one last time, shrieking as they reached out toward their collective souls, but now they were ready. Fueled by the unity they had built together, they pressed forward with their truths acting as shields. The creature's form twisted, diminishing further as it sensed its loss. Even the essence of its own darkness clung to it with flailing hands, desperately grasping at a reality that was slipping away. In that moment of edge, when the shadows seemed ready to engulf them once more, they shouted in unison a powerful chorus that drowned the howls of the fallen dark. We will not be afraid. The sound rang out like thunder, bold and resounding. Light erupted, flooding through the cracks of their joined hands, blinding and radiant. The shadows howled one final time, disbanding into wisps of nothingness, their darkness twisting and dissipating against the warmth and authenticity radiating from those brave souls. For a heartbeat, there was silence, a sweeping sense of peace washing over the room as they stood united in the aftermath of obliterating their own fears. The entity collapsed, fading away, leaving only whispers in its wake. The waitress looked around, breathless and alive. We did it, she finally said, awe threading her voice. It was a challenge mirrored in the eyes of each guest, a testament to resilience that would linger long after this night, but even as joy blossomed, the evening still held a bittersweet tinge. A part of them understood that this victory was theirs, yet the shadows would always loom just outside, waiting for a moment of despair to creep back in. Remember this, the millionaire said, his voice steadying in the silence, looking out over the gathered group. We are stronger together. But we must face our truths every day. That is how we hold the darkness at bay. As the last flickers of the dimmed party lights flickered back to life, the guests nodded, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Their hearts, which had quaked in terror only minutes before, now thrummed with hope and connection. With one final glance, the waitress stepped away from the edge where shadows had once beckoned, her expression powerful yet tender. And don't ever forget the dance. Whenever darkness calls, dance your truth, face your fears. That will always guide you back. As the crowd murmured in agreement, the millionaire smiled, overwhelmed with gratitude not just for surviving, but for the strength they had discovered collectively. The storm that once raged outside had subsided, leaving the sky clear and beautiful, a vivid tapestry of stars sparkling overhead, illuminating the path to healing and newfound beginnings. Tonight, we live, he said, breathing in the cool night air. As they stepped together from the shadows into the light of a new dawn, they embraced a truth larger than fear, a truth that could forever guide them, tethering them to hope. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will grip your heart and soul. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, make your voice matter. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this breathtaking ending. Let us reconnect. Plus, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. This is a chance to join a community that stands together in defiance against the dark. Your support counts. Let us make this journey unforgettable.